Hi, this is Tim of the Watch Box with a world premiere. Brand new 42mm in stainless steel. This is the Moser Cie Heritage Dual Time. A bit of a throwback sports watch from the Heritage collection that combines the Heritage-inspired case and dial with a second time zone complication. This functionality is outstanding, giving the watch a broad applicability. It could be your dress watch, sports watch for him or for her, because though it's 42mm in diameter, it's only 11.7mm thick, which makes it considerably thinner even than many Rolex sports watches. And from lug to lug, it's only 44mm, which means it's extremely short across the wrist. There is a 22mm spacing between the lugs, which is a nice modern stance, and you can see it wears well on my 16cm circumference wrist. But being as short as it is lug to lug, you can see just how it would wear well on a smaller wrist or even a female wrist. This truly is a polyvalent timepiece. And because it's relatively flat with a domed bezel, it'll slide easily under a tight dress cuff should you wish to wear it with formal attire. Moser sweats the details, and one of the details is their unique use of a Kudu leather strap. Now, if like me, you don't have a mental picture of that animal, open a different tab, keep me streaming, check out Kudu. It's what you get. I'll tell you how it feels. It's sort of velvety, almost like a nubuck leather texture, and it has a micro distress graining to it that makes it handsome, nuanced, with a sort of gray tone across the board. A little bit of bolstering to give it volume. You have a monotone stitch and then a sheer cut side showing the layers of leather with a more conventional calfskin on the bottom. This one, of course, is a prototype, so some details may differ with production versions. Moser, like I said, sweating the details, giving you a pin buckle that includes both satin and polish, and you can see how the polished pin sits in a little revetment inside the satinated buckle. Moser case bands are always distinctive and always a treat. They do things differently, machining their cases and then hand finishing. And whereas they usually have sculpted case hollows, here we have a very shallow coining to the case band, which has a slight variation in texture and tone breaks up the apparent mass of a watch that's already quite thin. We have the wire lug aesthetic, as this watch is designed to channel the sports watch, specifically pilot's watch aesthetic of the late teens and 1920s, and of course many of the pilot's watches of the 20s, like the officers' watches of the teens in World War I, they were converted pocket watches. So here we have the rotund case profile of a pocket watch, the onion-style crown, and then the look of lugs welded on, as they would have been in the early days when wristwatches, especially sporting wristwatches, were converted from existing pocket watches. Take a quick look at the dial, and you can see it's a little bit more modern in sensibility. It has the vintage aesthetic with the segmented cathedral-style broadsword hands and the counterweight lancet-style seconds hand, the railroad track for the minutes and seconds, and the large upright Arabic numerals, but it does feature a modern, perhaps even postmodern fume fade. This is the Burgundy dial, and the fume at Moser means the fade from light at the center to dark at the edge. The lume, however, sets it apart, as they use a material called Globalite, which is a ceramic lume matrix. It's actually a three-dimensional material. You can see how the numerals on the dial have length and width and height. They actually stand proud of the dial. They are not printed features. They are applique of solid lumed material. Now, dual time. I mentioned there is a second time zone complication, and it is fitted in exquisitely discrete form. If you don't need the second time zone, you can hide it away and out of sight, out of mind. It's a very clean application of the dual time capability. That means this watch is no busier of dial than the standard Heritage center seconds. Discretion, Moser's all about it. The branding here is decisively understated, even by Moser standards, and you can really see that on the dial. What appeared at first to me to be an engraving is actually a clear lacquer that's been built up. It is height above the dial and ghosted. It is a very subtle, clear lacquer that gives you the name of the manufacturer, but the idea is, even from a distance, even on your wrist, because it is so distinctive, the case, the lugs, the dial, the fume fade, and the color, you know who made it, even without looking at the name on the dial, and that is the idea. Now, the watch does feature a hacking or stop seconds capability, because it is a sports watch after all. It's not an aquatic sports watch with 30 meters resistance, but then again, that is fairly standard in pilot-style timepieces. It is an automatic winder. This is a new movement, HMC 809, bidirectional pawl-based magic lever winding system, 3-day power reserve, 21,600 vibration per hour beat rate. It is fairly thick, and with a full balance bridge and a free-sprung index, it is particularly well-suited as a rough-and-tumble sports watch caliper. The escapement, the balance, the hairspring, all made in-house by Moser's subsidiary, Precision Engineering. They make the tough parts of a movement. There are a lot of self-described manufacturers that make wheels and bridges and plates but don't want to touch the hard part, the assortment components. Moser makes those, and in fact, Moser, via Precision Engineering, is a fairly significant supplier of hairsprings to the industry. A couple of distinctive Moser finishing traits. You can see that there are 4 different finishes on the rotor, and then Moser's distinctive double-crested Cote de Genève across the bridges. You can also see that the bridges, though they are not true three-quarter, they do have the look. They read as a three-quarter bridge, a reference to the Moser pocket watches of the 19th and early 20th century. And you can see that we also have a mirrored bevel on the edge of the bridges, and then the same treatment in all the jewel and the screw countersinks with black polished screw heads for good measure. All in all, a persuasive take on the dual time watch in a vintage sort of neo sports watch or retro sports watch package. A watch that puts it all together for him or for her. The H. Moser & Cie Heritage Dual Time.